Well, congratulations, everybody. If you are still here at 2 o'clock on day 3 of Soccerex, it means you either only got the one-day pass or you have survived all 3 days. So thank you very much for joining us in this, our final session of 2017 in the Love Football Zone. And I'm delighted that we are able to present this final panel in partnership with our friends at Football for Peace. They've been a long-standing partner and friend of Soccerex, not just here in Manchester, but across many of our conventions and in the audience as well. As I'll introduce the panel at the moment, we do have Cash from Football for Peace, and just like to welcome you before I welcome the panel. So Cash, thank you for coming along, and thank you for being our continued friend and partner at Soccerex. And I think it's really important that over the past 3 days we've looked at many different issues that face football. We've heard many positive stories. Many of the topics around social development in football have been discussed, challenged, highlighted here. For me, yesterday was a very positive day, that although we didn't have Juan Mata on this stage, that was a real shift for us to be able to talk about social development, using football as that tool for community development, not here in the Love Football Zone, but actually on the main stage, and being able to listen to Jürgen and listen to Juan discuss their aims and their goals around using football as that tool to make social change, to make kind of community change, was really positive. So 3 very exciting and very informative days here in the Love Football Zone, and we're finishing with this this session entitled "The Power of Football," which really we hope encompasses this really exciting idea that, as we'll discuss, has been around for a while, around using the power of football as a tool for Football for Peace. And I'm joined by 3 very experienced and distinguished members of the footballing community that are going to discuss that today. Starting at the end, we have Jadeja, the CEO of Football for Peace. Welcome. I know we were on the stage this time last year, and I'm great that you're back again. Piara, Powar, Executive Director at FAIR. We heard you this morning, and it's great to have you on this side now, so now I can grill you rather than you grilling some of our other panellists, and we're looking forward to hearing your viewpoints. And lastly, we're delighted that Walter Gagg, former director at FIFA up until last December, is that correct, after how many years at FIFA?
35 years.
35 years, so a long time at FIFA, and we're looking forward to hearing some of his stories around his time there and how now he is an advocate for Football for Peace, as well as being a board advisor for them, as well as several other roles, including a director for the European Alliance of Coaches now. So a little round of applause, please, for our final panel before we get going. Now, we were discussing earlier, myself and Jay, that this concept of sports diplomacy, for some of us, may be a new term. For some of us, we're very well versed in what it means. So, Jay, I thought a good place to kick off this final session is for you to explain a little bit more about what do we mean by the term sports diplomacy, and how that has shaped this idea of Football for Peace.
Oh, absolutely. Firstly, thank you for having us again, and your warm welcome every year. The idea of sports diplomacy has been around for many, many years. I think it becomes more and more relevant today. We've seen examples such as the ping pong diplomacy around USA and China and how that created dialogue. We've seen North and South Korea walk together at the Olympics in 2000, and I think they're all great demonstrations how sport plays that role of diplomacy. And where Football for Peace are, we're looking to work in that space of football diplomacy and how we can use football as that tool to replicate those ideas. Obviously, from events that can take place that can really highlight the issues that we're facing today, as well as having real grassroots delivery that can impact youth and the next generation to really create dialogue and unite people.
And I know, only because we planned this, that we do have a little short video that we're quickly going to show on what is actually Football for Peace as an organisation. We hope. Here we go.
We're a diplomatic sports movement trying to unite people.
I think we can do more of this all around this country and all around the world. It can bring people together.
Okay, my rule when I'm coaching.
These are all opportunities for you guys to grow and develop as individuals.
It's been amazing, it's changed me as a person.
I'm never going to forget this.
The fact that sport can do this, bridge so many barriers, is fantastic.
Thanks, Jay. I think, Piara, if you don't mind me bringing you in now, it's quite a bold statement, isn't it? As in this term, football for peace. As in, in your views and opinions, can football really have such a big impact to actually kind of, I guess, create peace? As in, kind of, what's your view on that?
I think that's a good point. You know, this idea that any entity can suddenly create world peace is one that we should always look at, because there's lots of people, lots of entities that say the promise that they can do that, but actually it's a very difficult thing to do. Now, you know, as I travel around Europe mainly, but also other parts of the world, Latin America, Asia, Africa, you see actually that when you're relating to people, you look for things you have in common. When I go somewhere new, whether it's Leeds across the Pennines, or whether it's to Turin or to Argentina, I speak to cab drivers. And the first thing, if I'm looking to build a relationship with anybody who I'm new to, is to talk about football. And usually you will get a response. Usually it's a passionate response. Usually it's a response that somebody wants to pick up and have a discussion with you. So for me personally, as an introduction, I can see that it works. Just communicating with people, it's a great way of doing that. And then I think if you look at some of the situations around the world, you and I were talking earlier on about the achievements of the Syrian national team on the cusp of qualifying for the World Cup. I think they all have our best wishes, because if they could qualify, then that would be an amazing symbol. You know, you see the journey that individual players make from difficult circumstances at birth into international superstars. Ronaldinho was one of those guys we saw in the film. So football creates all sorts of opportunities for friendship, for bridge building, and in the end, yes, peace is the objective, I think, for many of us as individuals, as human beings. We want to live in peace, we want to create peaceful societies.
But I guess the biggest challenge is, how do you transfer the peaceful act that often happens around a game in perhaps one of these challenging environments through to actually that transferring into the community? Jay, do you think, or Piara, do you think that is something that you're now starting to see, that actually it's not just about the match, it's actually transferring into the communities?
Sorry, absolutely. I think in terms of our delivery as an organisation, I think that's exactly where we want to be. It's obviously the idea of creating dialogue is what we're about. And how do we do that? Yes, football is a great neutral platform for conversations in a cab or conversations at a stadium, but how do we transcend that into society and into communities? We obviously have developed a project as well as other organisations to try and continue to use football as a tool to challenge the next generations and their mindsets that they hold today, and how we can challenge those mindsets moving forward, so when they become older they have a different outlook on life.
So as an organisation, it's much more than just putting on a match. You actually start to try and impact the community in a daily kind of context.
Absolutely. So our projects are called our City for Peace projects, which we've developed all around the world, depending on what areas of the world we're going in. UK, for example, a lot of the focus is around bringing communities together from different backgrounds, whether it's cultural, religious, social, and creating a neutral environment and using football as that hook to bring them in. How they can use football as a tool to create wider engagement with the community, and really, again, create dialogue. Sport, as we know, is a perfect neutralizer and a great platform for people to have dialogue. And a lot of people ask us, we're talking about world peace, what does peace mean to us? You know, for us, it's not really an absence of war, but what it's about is about creating dialogue, understanding. A lot of people that come together, it takes a conversation for people to really understand one another. And it may not be a fact of becoming friends, but when you understand someone better, you're better set to make better judgment about your own ideas.
Walter, I'd like to come to you now. Obviously, it's great to have you with us today with so much experience at your time in FIFA, and I know in a moment you're going to share with us as well a message from one of our guests that couldn't be here. What I would like to know is, as an organisation, FIFA, at what point over the last years did it kind of come to your kind of attention that actually football could be used for this powerful kind of nature, both on a development side, but also as this kind of tool to create peace?
First of all, I would like to thank Jay and also Cash that I can be part of Football for Peace. Thank you, Jeremy, for this kind introduction. Yeah, FIFA, you know, we are this world organization of football, taking care of the 211 national associations with the 6 confederations. It is not only, we heard this several times this morning, it's not just football, it's more than football. And it's the social importance we have to bring all over the world, and that's why I think the football family coming together all the time, every 4 years for our World Cup, and it will be very soon, in 9 months, next year, for the first time in this big country, Russia, and we are very happy to share again with many millions of spectators, television viewers, and in the stadium of the Telfa Stadia in Russia, this wonderful football World Championship. Yes, you mentioned that I would like to mention our dear friend Willy Lemke, who is the special advisor to the United Nations Secretary General on Sport for Development and Peace, and when he said that sport in general to be a powerful tool to promote education, health, development and peace. And sport unites people of all over the world, social classes, culture, religions, and backgrounds in a positive and educational way. And we think Football for Peace, here this wonderful organization, aims the global popularity of football to promote peace through many actions and many missions. All these activities in football are done to open dialogue, to build awareness and to promote the role of our sport, our game, in contributing to peace-building objectives. This is one of the main aspects we have. And we all know that Football for Peace has to using sport to help create a better world. We try to create a better world. It is not easy. And sport in general can also contribute to world peace and to demonstrate that football can be a very powerful tool to create a very positive change. We often see that sport, and especially football, can realize things in the world what the politicians cannot realize. And that's why we think the aim and target of football is very important for all of us in the world.
Some really quite powerful words there, Walter. As in, we were chatting earlier around how many World Cups that you've been involved in, and perhaps this idea of Football for Peace as been both an add-on to these World Cups, but also actually within the World Cups themselves. And we just mentioned, Piara, a minute ago around the potential of Syria qualifying for next year. But this isn't the first example where actually the games within a World Cup have spoken quite loudly to the world in regards what the World Cup can do as an event.
That's true. Yeah, I started in World Cup Spain in 1982. At this time we had 24 teams. Nowadays we have 32 teams, also for 2018 and 2022. And we know that 2026 it will be a World Cup with 48 teams. We do not know how this will work, but we can believe that will be a tremendous organization, and this is the power of football. And personally, I'm very happy that we brought this World Cup 2026 to the 48 teams.
I guess that will then mean, with more teams, that there could be these more instances of perhaps countries that politically aren't at ease, but we can then kind of provide that platform as a sport to allow those teams to play together.
Yeah, that's true, and that's why we are hoping that we have in the future the best teams together. We hope this already for 2018. So far, we have big teams here in Europe. They are not yet sure to be qualified for this World Cup in Russia, but we hope the best. We know that there are no more small countries. We have seen this a few days ago when Luxembourg is playing 0-0 in France, and this is the wonderful game, and we are happy that this still can happen.
For those of you that didn't see the score from last night, Syria scored in the 93rd minute to draw 2-2 with Iran, and therefore they are now in a playoff against Australia to qualify for next summer. So there is every chance that Syria might qualify for the World Cup next year, which, although we were discussing earlier in the media this morning, there has been a discussion around whether it is a fairy tale. I'm not sure that I agree with that term kind of in relation to Syria. However, it would be a very powerful message to show that in the face of many adversities, you can get to a World Cup, and I'm sure that would be great for them as a country to hopefully come together and watch. On the subject of coming together, it's obviously been well documented, and we're all aware of some of the tragedies over the last 12, 18 months that have hit Europe, some of the terrorist attacks in Paris and Barcelona and London and Manchester. What we've seen as society is those cities coming together. Piara, as quite a worldly man, that, you know what I mean, you travel quite a bit across Europe. What do you think football can do in kind of continuing to help this process of healing, so to speak, and coming together?
Well, thanks very much for the tag of worldly man. I think I'll go back and tell my wife about that actually later on. But I think that in the end, when you are looking at a world that sometimes feels like there is a crisis because of the number of conflicts, because of the number of issues that we have, we look for positive things to bring people together, for people to be able to share. We discussed that earlier on. And then to be specifically looking at programs that can address some of the social problems that we have, but also some of the problems of dislocation that we have. Whether you're dealing with former child soldiers in a place like Rwanda, or whether you're dealing with the healing that Manchester has had to go through after a terrorist attack. Now, football can play a role because of that simple fact that it brings people together. And then people like these guys and Cash can build a project around that. From that project grows trust, grows community, grows cohesion, and then we're on the right road, I think. So, you know, I don't think that we can claim that football solves all of our world's problems, because that would be a claim too far. But certainly we know that we have, through football, the tools to begin to repair communities that are being pulled apart. And we know that we can do that because it's been evidenced. I've read some of the academic evidence on the way in which we can bring young people together, the way in which we can bring people from different communities together. So for me, it's, you know, that methodology is fixed. It's clear. We just need more people to buy into it, to understand, and to take the opportunities that then arise.
I guess that kind of leads on to one of my next questions, Ron. Jadeja, as an organisation, how do you actually try and measure whether football is creating peace, so to speak? Is that even possible to do?
I think it's going back to the idea of what you suggest peace is. Obviously, for us, it's about understanding, it's about creating dialogue. And if we can come together, I think leading on to what Piara is saying, I think football has a responsibility. We speak about the power of sport, but I think it's elevating that conversation and really coming together collectively as a sport to really drive those messages forward. And if we can get more people or more children participating in football to create neutral platforms, to create dialogue, I think that's where the measurement is. Now, trying to measure how friendships are developed, trying to measure behavioural change, that can become tough. Trying to measure people's thoughts about someone else, that can also be tough. But you're able to measure when people coming together and speaking to each other for periods of time or working together for periods of time, that's something that you can measure, and I think that's what we have to do more of collectively across the whole world.
And this wasn't teed up. I know, Jay, you got another short film, haven't you? Perhaps that leads nicely into it, that I guess one of the ways to measure is around case studies and actually speaking to young people. And we've got a second video, which I think just gives a little bit of insight on how you could measure by doing a little case study. So let's have a quick look.
I was bullied from a young age because of my skin colour and my culture and my religion, and yeah, it affected me quite a bit. I used to be a very, very violent person. If anyone even looked at me wrong, I'd try to start a fight or instigate it. All my friends would jump in as well. We weren't exactly the best of people then. But when I first arrived at Football for Peace, I thought, I'm gonna just go there, get what I'm gonna get out of it and go, instead of, go there for the benefits of it.
People will be coming to you for help. It's how you react at that time and how you respond.
I'm not used to just letting people in my life like that, speak to me on a social basis or anything. But as it progresses, I socialise a lot better. I began to speak out a lot more. We might just know each other just from Football for Peace, but we act like we've known each other for we're like a big family basically.
Tournament managers today is Abdul Ghaffar and Sarah Akhtar.
I wouldn't say I'm nervous. I'd say I have butterflies a little bit.
Well, the course has probably affected me in a very positive way.
This is a 9-a-side game. Referee's decision's final. Instead of just thinking about me and everyone's against me, I thought about maybe they're having their own problems. Just thinking about other perspectives. It's been amazing. It's changed me as a person, my perspective on things and other people, and yeah, I've done something good for once.
Can I come in now, actually?
I think round of applause first. Yeah, of course, Piara, yeah.
I was going to say, actually, I recognised that kid, and that was probably me 20, 30 years ago. Because I think sometimes when you grow up in a certain environment, you look around and your only response to things around you is anger. So anything that mitigates that, anything that can ease that, make you feel more comfortable within yourself, means that you're then relating to other people better. That's something I learned as I got older. And so I think this young man, although it's one small case study, is immensely privileged. He probably doesn't even know the process that he's been through if he's feeling a bit more relaxed with people.
I think what that just said to me there is the fact that obviously when we think about peace, we sometimes think about, right, how is football going to solve the war in place X or the place in war Y? But actually peace, is actually how the two people get on in their own community. It can be from a real community level all the way up to a national level. And although some of the great things that you guys have done when Cash has met certain individuals to put on that showcase of Football for Peace is just as important as him and his friends getting along all right and living in a peaceful environment, especially in some of these cities, I guess in 2017, where it's not all so peaceful.
If I can add here something, when we mentioned before that football in the past was never in danger. That means we went to the football matches and we were sure that there will happen nothing, no attack, no terrorism, no bad things during the match against spectators or even players. This is no more true. We remember in the African Cup of Nations a few years ago, it was in Angola, when the team of Togo came by bus from the border of Congo to Angola. The team bus was attacked. 2 or 3 people died. Different players were injured, very badly injured. We have had also 2 years ago in Paris, Stade de France, match France-Germany. It was a tremendous chance that police people, they did a very good job when they were stopping, arresting people, trying to go inside of the arena and making an impossible, an unbelievable disaster of the spectators inside in the Stade de France. So we are no more, nowadays, we are no more sure that this can happen in one city or in one country of the others. It is absolutely no more possible to say we are safe, nothing can happen.
And I guess on the back of that, we also saw, and the phrase, the power of sport, has been said many times on this stage this week, but I guess in those instances, the collective nature of the sporting community in whatever role you took was showed there a sense of community there to say, hey, we're still going to continue playing. Just kind of as we nearly draw to a close, I guess one question I've got for you, Jay, is around what can the man on the street do? What can people hear, as in other than, I don't mean looking on a website or finding out more about it, what can the everyday person do to try and not just get involved, but create this kind of peaceful nature around football?
Absolutely. I think that's a really interesting question, obviously for us as an organisation, because I think there's almost a two-pronged approach to Football for Peace. It's obviously a wider agenda and a big idea of challenging people and the ideas that they have in their own minds from what they've been exposed to through society. And I think you touched on some of the events that have taken place so close to us here in the UK. I think that's had a real impact on people. Now, our organisation, the challenges that we face is how can we reverse that? What can we do as society to try and bridge those gaps, which are sometimes really hard to swallow? How can the sport how can football come together and try and challenge those mindsets and bring people together? And the other idea, obviously, is an implementation process, which is through our City for Peace projects that we are hoping to roll out a few more in the UK, London in a few weeks, which will see youth come together from different backgrounds and different cultural backgrounds. And also the idea of what they're going through to touch on their parents and the wider communities that they're part of. Manchester is another great city which has unfortunately had to deal with a tragedy also. And I think it's Football for Peace and football's responsibility, again, to try and come in and really try and challenge those mindsets and try and create unity amongst the community.
And Walter, it must be something that you've obviously identified with, as in, I was joking that after 35 years at FIFA, you probably deserved the break, but the list of things that you're now involved in doesn't sound like you're taking much time off at all. So do you feel that obviously an organisation like Football for Peace and this idea of Football for Peace is something that is worth continuing campaigning for, to fight for?
I just would like to say that we can be happy that we have such a wonderful organization, Sport for Peace, what they are doing with many other people. It's just for the good of the game and for the security and for the good aim and target of the game. And we are so happy that we have people working behind this organization. And I'm personally very proud to be part of this organization because I know the importance of this organization and for the aim and target for this game the football, which has to be protected all the time and also in the future, because it's for the youth, it's for our young people, and for this there is no price to give our best also in all future.
Well, I think that's a really nice positive point to finish on here in our Love Football Zone. Walter, Piara, Jay, thank you so much indeed for joining us for this final panel here. And just to thank everybody over the last 3 days for joining us here in the Love Football Zone. All our stands, you've sat very patiently through lots of our talks as well. Also, just a little thanks to Dan and to Simon, and I think Jen isn't here. We sit down with a blank piece of paper about 9 months ago with how are we going to fill, or what are we going to fill, 3 days of content on the Love Football Zone, and we very much enjoy our discussions and journey as 4 people on what we can discuss here in the Love Football Zone. Hopefully you've got about 4.5 minutes, if you're quick, to get into the main studio if you want to catch the final discussion of the day. I think Colatore, Mike Phelan and Stan Collymore are joining David Dean to look back at 25 years of the Premier League, if you want to dive in there. But from the Love Football Zone, that's it for this year. Thank you very much indeed, everybody, for your contribution. We'll give our panel a round of applause, please. Yeah, and thanks for joining us today, and thanks for joining us over the last 3 days.